She listened to voices that time tried to erase. Her name was Alara, and her world was a quiet symphony of hiss and static in the dusty corner of her grandfather's attic. Amidst forgotten relics and cobwebs, she found them. Stacks of old cassette tapes. They weren't music. They were diaries, audio journals left behind by people she'd never met. Each tape was a portal, a whisper from a life lived long ago. She'd spend hours with her old Walkman, headphones pressed tight against her ears, a gentle click and the whir of the spools her only companions. The first voice she ever heard belonged to a woman named Clara. Clara's voice was like honey, warm and slow but tinged with a sadness that seeped through the magnetic tape. She spoke of a love lost to the sea, a sailor named Thomas whose ship never returned. Alara listened as Clara described his blue eyes, the way he laughed, the promise he made to come back. She felt Clara's hope slowly fade with each passing entry, her voice growing thinner, more fragile, until the tape ended with a soft re-sigh. Alara felt a pang in her chest, a phantom ache for a love she never knew. It was more than just listening. She was bearing witness. Then there was Arthur, a retired clockmaker. His voice was gruff, punctuated by the rhythmic ticking of a grandfather clock in the background. He spoke not of people, but of time itself. He described the intricate dance of gears and springs, the heartbeat of a well-made timepiece. He believed that every clock held a piece of its owner's soul, ticking away their moments, their joys, their sorrows. He talked about a special clock he was building, one he claimed could measure not just hours and minutes, but memories. Alara found herself mesmerized by his obsession, his philosophical musings on the nature of existence. Arthur's tapes made her look at the clock on her own wall differently, wondering what stories its hands had to tell. One rainy afternoon, she found a tape simply labeled Leo. The voice was young, full of energy and a nervous excitement. Leo was a budding musician. He wasn't a great singer, and his guitar playing was clumsy, but his passion was undeniable. He'd record snippets of songs, humming melodies, and then stop, frustrated. "No, that's not it," he'd mutter, followed by the sound of a crumpled piece of paper. He spoke of his dream to play on a real stage, to have just one person truly hear his music. His last entry was different. He'd finished a song, a simple, beautiful melody about chasing sunsets. He played it through, his voice shaking with emotion. Maybe this is the one," he whispered before the tape cut out. Alara searched for him online, her fingers flying across the keyboard, hoping to find a famous musician named Leo. She found nothing. His music, his dream, existed only on this forgotten piece of plastic. These voices became her friends, her teachers, her family. They taught her about love, loss, ambition, and the quiet beauty of an ordinary life. But as she delved deeper into this world of echoes, a strange feeling began to surface. It was a sense of responsibility, a need to do something more than just listen. These stories were too precious to remain silent, trapped in decaying magnetic tape. She felt a growing urge to connect these fragmented lives, to find the threads that might bind them together. Could Clarice, lost sailor, Thomas, have known Arthur, the clockmaker who lived by the sea? Could Leo have played his sunset song in a small cafe where Clara once sat, waiting? The idea seemed fantastical, but the more she listened, the more she felt the pull of these invisible connections. The thought began as a whisper, just like the voices on the tapes. What if she could share these stories? What if she could give these forgotten souls an audience? She started a podcast, calling it The Tape Library. Her first episode was about Clara. She played snippets of Clara's voice, weaving her own narration around them, telling the story of the woman who waited for a love that never returned. She didn't expect much. Maybe a few people would stumble upon it. But then, something incredible happened. An email arrived. It was from a woman who said Clara was her great-grandmother. She wrote that the family only knew whispers of the story, of a great love lost at sea. Hearing Clara's own voice, she said, was like receiving a letter from a ghost, a gift that brought tears and closure. The podcast grew. Alara shared Arthur's thoughts on time, and an association of horologists reached out, fascinated by his theories. She played Leo's sunset song, and messages poured in from aspiring musicians, all touched by his raw, unfinished dream. People started sending her their own family's tapes. Boxes arriving at her door, filled with recorded histories, wedding vows, a child's first words, a grandparent's final goodbye. Her little attic project had become an archive of humanity, a digital sanctuary for voices that time had tried to erase. She was no longer just a listener. She was a keeper of memories, a curator of whispers. One day, a dusty shoebox arrived with no return address. Inside was a single, unlabeled tape. She pressed play. The voice was faint, weathered by age, but instantly familiar. It was her grandfather. He was young, his voice full of the same nervous energy she'd heard in Leos. He spoke of a girl he'd just met, a girl with eyes that sparkled when she talked about stories. He described their first date, how he nervously recorded his thoughts afterward, hoping he hadn't said the wrong thing. He talked about falling in love, about building a life together, about his granddaughter, Ilara. He said he hoped one day she would find her own stories to cherish. The tape ended with the sound of a woman's laugh in the background, or a grandmother. Tears streamed down Ilara's face. All this time, she had been searching for connections between strangers, never realizing the most important story was her own, waiting to be heard. She had given a voice to the forgotten, and in doing so, she had found her own. The whispers from the past had led her home. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the archives of memory. What stories are hiding in your attic? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.